I fix computers for a living, which means I spend most of my day dealing with problems other people created. Turns out my marriage was just another broken system I should have debugged years ago. My name is Matt Russo, and I'm 37 years old. I run a small IT repair shop in Cleveland's suburbs, the kind of place where people bring their virus-infected laptops and act surprised when I tell them clicking hot singles in your area wasn't their smartest move. I'm good at what I do, even if it doesn't pay much. What I lack in social status, I make up for in technical skills, and what my best friend Dev calls dangerously accurate sarcasm. My wife Tracy works in human resources at a mid-sized insurance company downtown. She makes twice what I do and never lets me forget it. Somewhere along the way, our marriage became less about partnership and more about her climbing the social ladder while I held the bottom rung steady. The first real warning sign came at her brother's birthday party 3 months ago. I should have seen it coming when Tracy insisted I wear the new shirt she bought me, some overpriced designer thing that made me look like I was trying too hard. Her family always made me feel like the help they reluctantly invited to dinner. "So Matt," her brother Jake said, cutting into his steak with theatrical precision, "still fixing computers for little old ladies?" The table went quiet except for the scraping of silverware. Tracy's mom smiled that tight smile she reserved for discussing my career prospects. "Someone has to keep the world's technology running," I replied, keeping my voice level. Right, very noble." Jake reached for the fruit bowl and pulled out a banana. "Hey, you know what? I bet you could make more money doing tech support over the phone. You know, like those guys from India. Want to practice?" He held out the banana like a microphone, grinning at his own cleverness. "Come on, do the voice." "Hello, this is Matt from technical support. How may I help you today?" Hania, from Dent. The worst part wasn't Jake's casual racism or his assumption that I'd play along. The worst part was Tracy laughing. Not uncomfortable laughter, or the polite kind you do when you're trapped in an awkward situation. Real laughter, the kind that encouraged him to keep going. "Jake, stop it," she said, but she was still smiling. "Matt doesn't need to entertain us. Oh, come on, he's got a sense of humor. Don't you, Matt?" I looked around the table. Tracy's parents were trying to hide their amusement. Her sister was recording with her phone. Tracy herself was looking at me with this expression I'd never seen before, like she was embarrassed to be married to me. "You're right, Jake," I said, standing up. "I do have a sense of humor. That's how I've been married to your sister for 8 years." I left the dining room and waited in the car for 20 minutes until Tracy came out, flustered and annoyed. "You embarrassed me in there," she said, sliding into the passenger seat. "I embarrassed you?" He was just joking around. "You didn't have to be so sensitive." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way she'd looked at me, like I was something she wanted to hide. So I did what I do best. I started digging into the problem. Tracy had always been protective of her phone, but lately she'd become paranoid about it. She took it to the bathroom, kept it face down during dinner, and changed her passcode twice in the past month. As an IT professional, I recognized the signs of someone hiding something digital. It took me 2 weeks to figure out she had a second phone. I found it on a Tuesday afternoon while she was at work. Hidden in her jewelry box, underneath the earrings she never wore, was a cheap prepaid smartphone. The kind people buy when they don't want their activities tracked back to their main number. My hands were shaking as I powered it on. No passcode. She felt safe enough hiding it that she didn't bother with security. The text messages loaded, and my world shifted sideways. The contact was listed as E, and the conversation went back 3 months. 3 months of explicit messages, photos, and plans to meet. 3 months of my wife living a double life while I fixed other people's broken systems. But it wasn't just the affair that made my stomach turn. It was the group chat. Tracy had been sharing screenshots of our private conversations with her friends, Kelsey, Alana, and Steph. They had their own little commentary track running about my life, my career, my appearance. They called me Tracy's IT guy and made jokes about how boring I must be in bed. They traded stories about their own affairs and gave each other advice on how to keep their husbands from getting suspicious. "The key is to make them feel like they're being paranoid," Tracy had written. "Matt's so insecure already, I just have to act like he's being crazy when he asks questions." I sat on our bedroom floor, reading through months of casual cruelty, feeling like I was watching my marriage get dissected by strangers. These women I'd cooked dinner for, made small talk with at parties, helped with their computer problems. They all knew. They were all in on the joke, and I was the punchline.
Menemenemenemenemen.
The final message was from yesterday. Eric wants me to leave him. I'm not ready yet. Matt's still useful for paying half the mortgage, lol. Eric. I knew that name from Tracy's work stories. Eric Bell, who owned a gym downtown. The guy with the red Mustang who she'd mentioned was really motivated and inspiring. The same Eric who was apparently inspiring her to send photos I'd never seen her take. I took screenshots of everything, uploaded them to a secure cloud storage, and put the phone back exactly where I found it. Then I sat in my workshop behind the house, surrounded by broken computers and half-finished repair jobs, and planned my revenge. Some people would have confronted her immediately. Others might have filed for divorce and tried to move on with their lives. But I'm an IT guy, which means I believe in systematic solutions to systematic problems. Tracy had spent months making me feel paranoid and stupid. Her friends had spent months treating me like entertainment. Her family had spent years treating me like I wasn't good enough. It was time to return the favor, with interest. The beautiful thing about being underestimated is that people never see you coming. Tracy and her friends thought I was just some boring tech guy who fixed printers and installed antivirus software. They had no idea what someone with my skills could do when properly motivated. I spent the next week gathering intelligence. Every IT professional knows that information is power, and I was about to become very powerful indeed. First, I recovered all of Tracy's deleted messages from her main phone. People think deleting something makes it disappear, but data recovery is literally what I do for a living. I found 6 months of conversations with Eric, including photos of them together at hotels I'd never heard of, restaurants they'd visited while I was working late, and detailed discussions of their future plans. Then I started digging into Eric himself. Social media made it easy. His gym's Facebook page was public. His Instagram was full of shirtless selfies and motivational quotes, and his business registration was a matter of public record. More importantly, his customer reviews told a story of a guy who cut corners and made promises he couldn't keep. But the real goldmine was Tracy's work computer. She'd made the mistake of using her company laptop for personal email, which meant her IT department had logs of everything. A quick social engineering call to their help desk. Hi, this is Matt Russo from Consolidated IT Services. We're doing a security audit for your HR department. Got me access to more information than I knew what to do with. Tracy hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been using company time and resources to coordinate her affair, plan personal trips, and even help Eric with his business taxes. She'd also been sharing confidential employee information with her friends, including salary data and disciplinary records they used for gossip. My friend Dev found me in the workshop on Friday evening, surrounded by printed emails and handwritten notes that looked like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. "Dude, you look terrible," he said, setting down 2 beers and surveying my evidence wall. "Please tell me you're not planning to do anything stupid." Dev Patel had been my best friend since college. He worked as a software developer for a tech startup downtown and was the only person who understood both my technical abilities and my tendency toward elaborate problem solving. "Define stupid," I said, taking a beer and pointing to a timeline I'd created. "Is it stupid to expose someone who's been lying to you for months? Is it stupid to reveal that someone's been stealing from their employer? Is it stupid to show people who someone really is? It's stupid if it gets you arrested or sued or both." Dev studied my evidence wall with the same expression he used when debugging particularly complex code. "Matt, I get it. Tracy's been horrible to you. But this looks like you're planning to destroy her entire life. I'm planning to reveal her entire life. There's a difference, is there?" I showed him the group chat screenshots, watching his expression change from concern to disgust as he read through the messages. "Okay," he said finally. "That's messed up. But what's your endgame here? You expose her affair, she gets embarrassed, you get divorced, and then what? You still have to live in the same town as these people. Dev, you're thinking too small. This isn't about embarrassing her. This is about consequences." I walked him through my plan. It was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its scope. Tracy's birthday was in 2 weeks, and she was planning a big party at Skyline, the trendy rooftop bar downtown. She'd invited everyone, her work friends, her family, her social circle, and Eric, who was supposedly just another friend from the gym. "I'm going to give her a birthday surprise she'll never forget," I told Dev. "And the best part is, I won't have to say a word. I'll let her own messages do the talking." Dev was quiet for a long moment, studying the evidence wall. You know what the scariest part of this is? He said finally. What? I actually think it might work. The next week flew by in a blur of preparation. I rented a small office space across from Eric's gym and set up surveillance cameras with telephoto lenses. I created fake social media accounts to monitor Tracy's friends. I even drove by their usual meeting spots and photographed them together, building a comprehensive timeline of their relationship. But the real work was technical. I needed a way to display my evidence at the party without anyone being able to stop me or trace it back to me directly. The solution came from an old client whose restaurant had hired me to set up their digital menu boards. Skyline used a similar system for their promotional displays, large screens throughout the bar that showed drink specials and upcoming events. The system was controlled by a central server that pulled content from their website. All I had to do was gain access to that server and upload my own content. It took me 3 days to crack their network security, not because it was particularly sophisticated, but because I wanted to be absolutely certain I could get in and out without leaving traces. When I was done, I had complete control over every screen in the bar. I spent another day creating my presentation. Nothing fancy, just a simple slideshow that would cycle through Tracy's messages, photos, and emails. I included timestamps, contact information, and enough context to make everything crystal clear. I even added a soundtrack, Tracy's favorite song, the one she'd been playing constantly since she started her affair. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through the plan, checking for flaws, making sure I hadn't missed anything. Tracy was in the bathroom getting ready for bed when her phone buzzed with a message. "Who's texting you this late?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just Kelsey, confirming tomorrow's plans," she said. But she was already typing a response with the phone tilted away from me. I already knew what the message said. I'd been monitoring their group chat for days. Kelsey was asking if Eric would be there, and Tracy was assuring her that everything was under control. They were planning to introduce Eric as Tracy's new friend and see how I reacted. "I'm really excited about tomorrow," Tracy said, sliding into bed next to me. "It's going to be such a surprise." "I'm sure it will be," I replied. She had no idea how right she was. Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth for October in Cleveland. I spent the afternoon doing final preparations while Tracy was at the salon getting ready for her party. She'd chosen Skylines specifically because it was the kind of place that made her feel important. Expensive cocktails, city views, and the sort of crowd that judged you by your shoes and your phone. I arrived early, dressed in the same shirt Tracy had bought me for her brother's party. If tonight went according to plan, it would be the last gift from her I'd ever wear. The bar was already filling up with familiar faces. Tracy's work colleagues clustered near the windows, nursing craft cocktails and making the kind of small talk that passes for socializing in corporate America. Her family had claimed a large table in the center of the room, with Jake holding court and telling the same stories I'd heard at every gathering for 8 years. Kelsey, Alana, and Steph were arranged near the bar itself, perfectly positioned to observe and comment on everyone who entered. They'd dressed for maximum impact, the kind of outfits that said they took themselves very seriously and expected others to do the same. "Matt!" Kelsey waved me over with the enthusiasm of someone who'd already started drinking. "Tracy's not here yet. I thought you two would arrive together." "She wanted to make an entrance," I said, which was true. Tracy had insisted on arriving separately so she could work the room without me slowing her down. "Well, you look nice," Alana said, with the tone people use when they're trying to be polite about something unremarkable. "Is that a new shirt?" "Birthday gift from Tracy," I replied. "She has excellent taste." They exchanged glances, the kind of look that meant they were sharing some private joke at my expense. I wondered if they'd still find it funny in an hour. Eric arrived 20 minutes later, and I had to admit Tracy had good taste in affairs. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, athletic, with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to fix someone else's problems. He wore his success like cologne, heavy and impossible to ignore. He scanned the room, spotted Tracy's friends, and headed straight for them with the easy smile of someone who'd never been rejected by anything in his life. "Ladies," he said, and I watched Kelsey practically melt. "Tracy here yet?" "Any minute now," Steph said, then noticed me standing nearby. "Oh, Eric, this is Matt, Tracy's husband." The moment stretched just long enough to be uncomfortable. Eric extended his hand with the grip of someone who'd spent years lifting weights and wanted you to know it. "Matt, I've heard so much about you. Tracy says you're in computers?" "Something like that," I said, matching his grip. Tracy's mentioned you too. You own a gym, right? Fitness is my passion, he said, launching into what sounded like a rehearsed speech about helping people achieve their potential. I nodded along, watching his body language, noting the way he kept checking his phone and scanning the entrance. Tracy arrived at 8:30 sharp, making the entrance she'd planned. She'd chosen a dress I'd never seen before, red, expensive, and designed to be remembered. The conversations around us quieted as she moved through the room, accepting birthday wishes and air kisses like a politician working a crowd. She found our group and kissed me on the cheek with the kind of affection that looked good from a distance. Sorry I'm late, everyone. Traffic was terrible. She turned to Eric with a smile that was just professional enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking for the signs. Eric, I'm so glad you could make it. Everyone, this is Eric Bell. He owns that new gym I've been telling you about. The introductions continued, and I watched the performance with professional admiration. Tracy had choreographed this perfectly. Eric was just another friend, someone she'd met through her fitness journey, a perfectly innocent addition to her social circle. If I hadn't seen their messages, I might have believed it myself. I'm going to get another drink, I announced to no one in particular. Anyone need anything? A chorus of orders followed me to the bar, where I positioned myself with a clear view of the room, and, more importantly, the server room door I'd identified during my earlier reconnaissance. The bartender was busy with the Saturday night rush, and the wait staff were focused on the dinner crowd. No one was paying attention to one unremarkable guy in an unremarkable shirt. I checked my phone. 8:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, Skyline's promotional displays would automatically refresh their content from the central server. In 13 minutes, Tracy's carefully orchestrated party would become something very different. I ordered a whiskey, something I rarely drank, but tonight felt like an occasion, and watched my wife work the room. She was good at this, I had to admit. She made everyone feel like they were the most important person at the party, laughed at Jake's stories like she was hearing them for the first time, and managed to position herself near Eric without making it obvious. Her friends were in their element too, dissecting outfits and relationships with the precision of surgeons. I caught fragments of their conversation, speculation about who was sleeping with whom, analysis of career moves and social climbing, the kind of casual cruelty that passed for entertainment in their circle. At 8:55, I excused myself to use the restroom, taking a route that led me past the server room. The door was locked, but I'd prepared for that, a few seconds with a lockpick set, another skill that comes in handy in IT work, and I was inside. The server was exactly where I'd expected it, humming quietly in its climate-controlled environment. I connected my laptop, uploaded my presentation to replace the existing promotional content, and set it to begin at exactly 9 p.m. Then I locked the server room behind me and returned to the party. There you are, Tracy said as I rejoined the group. I was starting to think you'd escaped. Just freshening up, I said. Wouldn't want to miss anything important. At exactly 9 p.m., the screens around the bar flickered as they refreshed their content. For a moment, nothing seemed different, just the usual rotation of drink specials and upcoming events. Then the first screenshot appeared. It was a message from Tracy to Eric, time-stamped 3 days earlier. Can't wait for tonight. Matt's working late again. He never suspects anything. The conversations around us faltered as people noticed the display. Someone pointed. Someone else laughed nervously. And then the room began to quiet as the implications sank in. The second screenshot was from the group chat. Matt's so clueless. I could probably bring Eric home for dinner, and he'd just ask if he wanted seconds. Tracy's face went white. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my sleeve. Matt, what is this? What's happening? I have no idea, I said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. Looks like someone's playing a prank. The third screenshot included a photo. Tracy and Eric at a hotel I recognized from their message history. Eric was shirtless. Tracy was wearing lingerie I'd never seen, and they were both smiling at the camera with the satisfaction of people who thought they were getting away with something. The room erupted. Jake was on his feet, pointing at the screen and demanding explanations. Tracy's work colleagues were taking pictures with their phones. Kelsey was trying to get the bartender's attention, as if he could somehow make the images disappear. Turn it off! Tracy shouted at no one in particular. Someone turn it off! But the presentation was just getting started. The fourth screenshot was an email Tracy had sent from her work computer, sharing confidential salary information with her friends so they could gossip about their mutual acquaintances. The fifth was a detailed discussion of how to hide affair expenses from suspicious spouses. Eric tried to leave, pushing through the crowd toward the exit, but Jake blocked his path. Where do you think you're going? Jake's voice carried across the bar. You want to explain what I just saw? This is crazy, Eric said, his earlier confidence evaporating. I don't know what this is, but it's not what it looks like. The sixth screenshot was Eric's response to that exact concern. Don't worry about your husband. If he was smart enough to figure this out, he wouldn't be fixing computers for a living. The crowd turned to look at me, and I realized this was my moment. I could play the devastated husband, the clueless victim, the man who just discovered his world was falling apart. Instead, I raised my whiskey in a toast. Happy birthday, Tracy, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. I hope you got everything you wanted. The final screenshot was Tracy's message from that morning. One more day of pretending to be married to that loser. Then Eric and I can start planning our real future. The silence that followed was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once. Accusations, denials, demands for explanations that no one could provide. Tracy was crying. Eric was trying to push past Jake toward the exit, and her friends were frantically trying to distance themselves from the disaster unfolding on every screen in the bar. I finished my whiskey, left money on the bar, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Tracy calling my name, but I didn't turn around. I'd spent months feeling like a fool, and now it was someone else's turn. The elevator doors closed on the chaos, and I found myself smiling for the first time in months. The night was young, and my revenge was just getting started.
No sonjan dia, dedam dadam dia, biskam, tanbiam bising mia, biskem bistiam, diam bising yam, da, dam bia mia, dam biam dia mia, biam dia, bisum diam dia ba, da bia gandam bia, bisum bia, da band, biam da biam da bia, diam dia bia, biam
I wasn't surprised when Eric caught up with me as I reached my car. You think you're clever? He said, his gym-sculpted frame blocking my path to the driver's door. You think this little stunt makes you some kind of hero? I turned to face him, keys in my hand, phone recording in my pocket. I'd learned to document everything since discovering Tracy's secret communications. I think it makes me someone who knows how to use a computer, I said. Apparently that's more than you can handle. His face flushed red, and I could see him calculating whether to escalate this to physical confrontation. Eric was bigger than me, stronger, and probably had experience with violence from his gym background. But he was also panicking, and panicked people make mistakes. You have no idea what you've done, he said, stepping closer. Tracy was going to leave you anyway. All you've accomplished is making yourself look pathetic. Pathetic? I laughed, genuinely amused. Eric, I just turned your girlfriend's birthday party into a public screening of your private messages. I'd say that makes me resourceful.
No,
You're going to tell everyone those messages were fake, that you made the whole thing up because you're a jealous husband who couldn't handle his wife having male friends. And why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll make sure you regret it. I looked down at his hands on my shirt, then back up at his face. Eric, you're making a mistake. You're angry and embarrassed, and you're not thinking clearly. I suggest you let go of me and walk away. Or what? Or I'll show everyone the video of you threatening me in a parking garage. His grip loosened slightly as he processed what I'd said. That's right, I continued. I've been recording this entire conversation. Assault, criminal threatening, intimidation. I'm pretty sure that's enough to get you arrested. And unlike your messages with Tracy, this video will be admissible in court. Eric released me and stepped back, his expression shifting from anger to calculation. You planned this, he said. The whole thing. You've been planning this for weeks. Months, actually. You two weren't as careful as you thought. I unlocked my car and opened the door, then paused. No, and Eric? You might want to check your Mustang before you drive home. I noticed it was making some interesting noises earlier. His red Mustang was parked 3 spaces away, and I watched his face change as he processed the implication. He rushed to his car, popping the hood and staring at the engine with the helpless expression of someone who'd never learned to fix anything himself. I'd spent an hour that afternoon installing a small device that would cause his engine to overheat after about 10 minutes of driving. Nothing dangerous, nothing permanent, just expensive and embarrassing. The kind of problem that would leave him stranded and require a tow truck. You can't do this, he shouted as I started my engine. This is harassment. This is consequences, I called back through my open window. Something you apparently never learned about. I drove home through the quiet suburbs, past houses where normal couples were probably watching television or putting their children to bed. My house was dark when I arrived, and I realized Tracy was probably still at Skyline dealing with the aftermath of her ruined party. My phone had been buzzing constantly during the drive home. Texts, calls, voicemails from numbers I recognized, and some I didn't. Word was spreading fast, which had been part of my plan. Tracy's social circle thrived on gossip and drama, and tonight I'd given them enough material to last for months. I poured myself another whiskey and sat in my workshop, surrounded by the evidence wall I'd constructed over the past weeks. Tomorrow I would take it down, but tonight it felt like a monument to systematic problem solving. My phone rang. Tracy, Matt, please, she said when I answered. We need to talk. I can explain everything. Can you? Because those messages seemed pretty self-explanatory. It's not what you think. Eric and I, we're just friends. Those messages, they were taken out of context. I almost laughed. Even now, caught with overwhelming evidence, she was still trying to manipulate me. Tracy, I read 6 months of your messages. I saw the photos. I have emails showing you used company resources to plan your affairs. What context makes that acceptable? You violated my privacy. You hacked into my personal communications. I recovered deleted data from devices in our shared home. That's not hacking. That's digital forensics. She was quiet for a moment, and I could hear voices in the background, probably her friends trying to coach her through this conversation. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. For months, you and your friends treated me like I was stupid. You made jokes about my career, my appearance, my intelligence. You stole from your employer and committed adultery, all while making me feel like I was paranoid for noticing something was wrong. So what happens now? Now you deal with the consequences. Your friends know who you really are. Your family knows who you really are. Your coworkers know who you really are. And Eric knows that his new girlfriend is the kind of person who'll betray someone who trusted her. Matt, please. I made mistakes, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. No, Tracy, we can't. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. For months, you chose to lie to me, steal from your employer, and plan a future that didn't include me. Tonight, I chose to let everyone see who you really are. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside, the suburban night was peaceful and quiet. Inside, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Satisfaction. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, divorce proceedings, and the complicated process of untangling 8 years of shared life. But tonight, for the first time since I'd found Tracy's secret phone, I felt like I was the one in control. Some people might call what I'd done cruel or excessive. But I was an IT professional, and I believed in thorough solutions to complex problems. Tracy's betrayal hadn't been a single incident. It had been a systematic campaign of deception and humiliation that lasted for months. My response had been equally systematic, equally thorough, and far more effective than anything I could have accomplished through conventional confrontation. I finished my whiskey and went to bed in the guest room, sleeping better than I had in months. Tomorrow, Tracy would have to face the consequences of her choices. Tonight, that was enough. Monday morning brought a new reality. I woke up to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and an email inbox that had exploded overnight. Word of Saturday's revelation had spread through Tracy's social network like a virus, and everyone wanted to know more details, offer support, or simply satisfy their curiosity about the drama. Tracy had spent the weekend at her sister's house, leaving me alone with the aftermath of her ruined birthday party. I'd used the time productively, consulting with a divorce attorney and beginning the process of separating our finances. I also started monitoring the social media fallout from Saturday night. The videos people had taken at Skyline were everywhere. Tracy crying at the bar while screenshots of her messages played on repeat. Eric trying to push through the crowd while Jake confronted him. Me raising my whiskey in a toast while my wife's affair was broadcast to everyone she knew. But the real entertainment was happening in the comments sections, where Tracy's social circle was turning on itself with the efficiency of a pack of wolves. Kelsey was claiming she'd never approved of the affair and had tried to talk Tracy out of it. Alana was sharing her own suspicions about Eric's character. Steph was posting cryptic messages about fake friends and finally seeing people's true colors. The group chat that had once united them in mocking me was now a liability, with each woman trying to distance herself from the others before more screenshots surfaced.
Wilder, Weok, Min.
I was reading through the latest round of social media drama when my doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see Eric's red Mustang in my driveway, freshly repaired from whatever mechanical issues had stranded him Saturday night. Eric stood on my porch looking like he hadn't slept, his usual confidence replaced by the haggard appearance of someone whose life had imploded in public. "We need to talk," he said when I opened the door. "Do we? This has gone far enough. You made your point Saturday night. Tracy's humiliated, I'm humiliated. Everyone knows what happened. It's over." I leaned against my doorframe, studying his face. "Eric, I don't think you understand the situation. Saturday night wasn't